Somebody lost a chocolate.
Hi, sorry. Welcome to the House Education Finance Committee. Gavel us to order. It's kind of like coming back to summer camp. So it's so great to see everybody. And I know we have a lot of exciting things happening this session, and everybody's excited to see each other. But we're going to keep rolling because we have to actually end a little bit early today. We have session at noon, so I want to give time for folks to walk over. But to start with, we have our first order of business is to look at the minutes from last session. And I'm wondering if Representative Purcell would like to look at the minutes from March 30th, 2023.
Madam Chair, after perusing the minutes, I move their approval.
Thank you. And that's my waitressing days. I get used to asking people when they. Sorry about that. Are there any questions on the minutes or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The minutes for March 30th, 2023 are adopted. Thank you. So first, like I said, I'd like to welcome everybody back to the House Education Finance Committee. As you can see, we are in new digs. We do have an addition of a cart that still allows us to do virtual testimony, and I know the space is a little more crowded than we're used to. So if there's a problem with you hearing folks or seeing when we have virtual testimony, just let us know. While the session will be focused on policy and bonding, because it's the second year of the biennium, our committee will also have some work to do. First, we're going to look at the implementation of everything we passed last year and see how it's going, and that's what the next two committee hearings are. See if there's any holes that we need to fill or things we need to tweak. The next big bucket of things we'll be looking at are bills to address the needs our school districts still have. You know, while we made that $5.4 billion investment for the next 4 years, our schools are still struggling because you can't turn around 20 years of underfunding overnight. So I'm hoping you bring us your voices of your community and the needs of your district still, and we'll be hearing those bills and having those discussions. And then also, as you know, second year of the biennium sometimes is a rebuilding year, just like in athletics. You're rebuilding the team and rebuilding the stuff that you're going to be working on next year when we have another budget cycle. So we'll be hearing a lot of, hearing bills from members and hearing from community and hearing from districts and hearing from MDE and beginning our work together. As many of you may have also noticed, we have a new member who is way down there. See, I can't even see everybody at the table. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Representative Bianca Vernig introduce herself, and then we're just going to go around the committee table and introduce ourselves again to her as well. And for Representative Vernig, I want you to say who you are, what districts you represent, what area you represent, and maybe a fun few facts about you. But what I'd like to see from everybody else to keep things moving along, your name, the area you support, the area you represent, and the school districts that you serve would be great. So with that, welcome Representative Bianca Vernig.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, my name is Bianca Vernig, and I'm the newest member. I represent Eagan, Mendota Heights, and Mendota, so 52B. I have 3 children, and I recently served on the 196 school board for a couple of years, and I also represent District 197. And a fun fact, I'm an award-winning artist in the Dakota County Fair.
Nice. Thank you. And I think we're just going to go around the table on the outside, and then we'll sweep in on the inside. So Representative Greenman.
Representative Emma Greenman, welcome. 63B, which is South Minneapolis, and I have the Minneapolis Public Schools in my district.
Great. Lori Pryor, I'm also the chair of Education Policy. I represent 49A, and that's Southern Minnetonka and Northern Eden Prairie, and I represent the school districts of Minnetonka, Hopkins, and Eden Prairie.
Josiah Hill, I represent District 33B over in Bayport and Stillwater, up along the river, all the way up to Forest Lake, including Scandia, Marine, and May Township, and Stillwater Township.
Representative Christy Purcell, 58A. I represent the communities of Northfield, Dundas, Lonsdale, New Prague, and I represent the Northfield Public School District, New Prague, and Tri-City United.
Heather Edelson, happy first day of committee. I represent Edina and a portion of Bloomington.
Representative Perez Vega. I represent District 65B, which hosts the St. Paul School District as well as West St. Paul and Mendota Heights. Gracias.
Samantha Sensumura. I represent 63A, which is South Minneapolis and Minneapolis Public Schools.
Good morning, Mary Frances Clardy. I represent Inver Grove Heights, Sunfish Lake, Lilydale, Mendota Heights, and West St. Paul, and Districts 197 and 199, which is Mendota Heights and Inver Grove Heights.
Polly Sirkvenick, Committee Administrator, Education Finance.
Representative Cheryl Joachim, Chair, and I represent all of Hopkins, a few precincts left in St. Louis Park, and about a quarter of Edina. So I represent Hopkins, St. Louis Park, and Edina Public Schools.
Hello, my name is Shamana Braha. I am the Committee Legislative Assistant.
I'm Tim Strom with House Research.
Christina Para with House Research.
Solveig Beckel, House Fiscal.
Representative Pam Altendorf. I'm from the Red Wing area, Goodhue, Lake City, Cannon Falls, Wabasha. They're all my school districts. And thanks, Polly, for the chocolate.
Representative Krista Knudsen from 5A up north. I have 16 school districts in my House district. Park Rapids, Brainerd, Pequot Lakes. There's quite a few of them. Crazy Burgess. Welcome to committee.
Hi, Representative Patty Anderson. I'm North Washington County, the northwestern Washington County. So Forest Lake, White Bear, Matamidi, and a tiny bit of Stillwater.
Shane Hudella, 41B, Hastings, Cottage Grove. Those are my school districts.
Welcome to our committee. Nice to have you here. I'm Peggy Bennett. I represent 23A, which is southern Minnesota, Albert Lee being the largest city. And the districts that, school districts that reside within my district there's 5 of them: Albert Lee, Glenville, Alden, Wells, and New Richland, Heartland, Ellendale, Geneva is all one little acronym for.
Jody Withers, House Republican Caucus.
This is awkward, trying to talk to you, but Ben Bakeberg, I represent 54B. It's the communities of Prior Lake, Jordan, Shakopee, surrounding townships, same school districts with the addition of Southwest Metro.
Nolan West. Yeah, sitting on the inside of the table is terrible. Nolan West, I represent Blaine, Ham Lake, and Columbus, which is Anoka Hennepin, 150 square feet of Spring Lake Park School District, and Forest Lake School District.
Hey, I am Representative Sydney Jordan. I represent the people of Northeast Minneapolis and Southeast Como and the people of Minneapolis Public Schools.
Mars Beltrandi Redquist, DFL Caucus Research for Education, Finance, and Policy.
And I just want to acknowledge we have a new page this year that I hope is staying with us, and it's Connor Beckel over there. So just for the page's sake, too, you'll notice that the microphones, you might have to pull them a little closer than you did in our old room. And they also pick up a lot more ambient noise. So if you're going to chat with each other, make sure you hit the mute button. It's a little different than the Capitol hearing room. With that, we did the brief introductions. We are probably going to roll into presentations. I want to remind you that there is 23-24 new finance guide for school finances in your packet. You might want to stick in your safe folder or bring up to your office to read. Also, the PowerPoint that you have in your packet today, please put it in the safe folder and keep it for tomorrow, because we're going to do half of it today and half of it tomorrow. And like I said, once again, we will be breaking at about 11:45 to be able to go right over to the Capitol for a quick floor session. So with that, the next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Minnesota Department of Education on the implementation of programming and funds from the 2023 education budget. So today we'll be hearing about the work being done to bring us to federal compliance in special education, licensing, the implementation of the Office of Inspector General, an update on grant management and non-exclusionary discipline training. Tomorrow we'll continue to hear from MDE about universal meals, the READ Act, and the mental health grants. We, like I said, will be adjourning at 11:45. And with that, I will welcome up Commissioner Willie Jett to the testimony table. Please state your name for the record and go ahead and proceed. Thank you, Vice Chair. You always have to have someone that has your back. Commissioner Jett, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. My name is Willie Jett, and I serve as the Commissioner of Education. It is a pleasure to provide this committee with an update on the implementation of some of the programs that were passed in the 2023 legislative session. Several of the MDE leadership team are here with me today and tomorrow to provide detail on these initiatives. First, I want to take a few moments to provide an overview. Next slide. Much of what the legislature passed has been crucial to making the One Minnesota budget and the Due North plan come to life. Together, we are making Minnesota the best state for students and families. Our students learn each day filled by healthy and nutritious meals. Our students will have the access and the opportunity to become confident and successful readers. And educators will have the resources and training they need to deliver on this commitment. Our students' diverse needs are being met because we added more support personnel into our schools. Our students will have a prepared, reliable educator because we are putting resources toward recruitment, retention, and towards professional development. Our students deserve a safe, healthy, and supportive teaching and learning environment, and these resources and policies deliver that. Next slide. After a profound and productive 2023 legislative session, MDE has been hard at work implementing all of the programs and funding that were passed into law. It's clear that the 2023 legislative session has already had dramatic impact. Since I've come to the department, my colleagues and I have spent a lot of time visiting schools and communities around the state. I had a fourth grade student stop me and thank me for the breakfast and lunch he now gets to eat every day. A high school senior told me how grateful she was for free, accessible period products. And the parish shared the impact that unemployment insurance has made on her life as she was able to use the time during the summer to work toward her teaching degree. Bottom line, the work done last year has changed lives. Next slide. Our implementation presentation will split between today and tomorrow. Today we are going to discuss 3 topics. First, CFO Patty Hand and Inspector General Patrick Wolfgram will present on grants management and the Office of Inspector General. Second, Assistant Commissioner Dr. Makari Trainum will provide an update on non-exclusionary discipline training. And finally, Assistant Commissioners Angela Mansfield and Darren Cordy will present on the special education teacher pipeline. Next slide. And before I hand this conversation over to my colleagues, I want to say that I am proud of and grateful for this team. In the short months since session ended last May, we've gotten almost all of the 60-plus legislative named grants fully awarded. Critically, we have our Office of Inspector General established, and I appreciate that Mr. Wolfgram has joined our team. Staff have done tremendous work to implement the non-exclusionary discipline package passed last year and have reached over 2,000 educators through our trainings, with many more scheduled. Finally, through the grant nearing completion to develop the special education teacher pipeline, we will reach over 900 teachers and non-licensed staff. I hope that you too will be proud, just as proud as me, and excited about this essential work that we've done together. And so I'd like to hand it off to Ms. Patty Hand and Mr. Wolfgram.
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to share. My name is Patty Hand, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Minnesota Department of Education. I'm here with Patrick Wolfgram, Inspector General at MDE. We'll be providing an overview about MDE's efforts to strengthen oversight and monitoring. Before we begin, next slide, thank you. Before we begin, I want to offer the Minnesota Department of Education's deep commitment to ensuring that every child receives a quality education across the state of Minnesota. We are committed to excellence. Our goal is to support the success of our students, our educators, our families, and our communities that we serve. We are committed to driving towards solutions. With this, we are working towards continuous improvement. MDE is a learning organization, and we are always looking for ways to improve our processes and training with input from our constituents. We are committed to building a culture of accountability. We have a fiscal responsibility to serve as careful stewards of state resources and follow the best practices in our operations as an agency. We are happy to demonstrate our growth and strengthening of our oversight and monitoring in grants management, the creation and development of the Office of the Inspector General, and our collaboration moving forward together as we work to strengthen the monitoring of our funds administered by MDE. Next slide. MDE's grant programs are a key way we support our students. For context, in fiscal year 22, MDE was appropriated 35 legislatively named grants and 11 competitive grants. At this time, 64 total legislatively named grants were appropriated for fiscal year 24. This is an 83% increase from fiscal year 22. 61 official grant awards have been fully executed. There are 3 grants that have not been distributed fully yet. They are Student Organization Grant for Business, our Coalition to Increase Teachers of Color and American Indian Teachers in Minnesota, and the Wheel and Cog Children's Museum that we are finalizing soon. For our competitive grants, 24 competitive grants were appropriated for fiscal year 24. This is a 118% increase from fiscal year 22. 9 requests for a proposal, we call them RFPs, are completed. 4 RFPs are posted, 3 RFPs will post this month, and 4 applications are under review. Next slide. I'm first going to focus on the accomplishments. These are actions that we have completed in this past year. I'm going to focus on 3 areas: technology, enhanced training, and updated policies and procedures. Next slide. Before I start to talk a little bit more about technology, I'll explain what MEGS means. MEGS is our Minnesota Education Grant System that is replacing our State Educational Record View and Submission, our SERVS system. MEGS is a web-based system that supports grant business needs. The system supports application submissions, amendments, and approval, as well as grant award notifications. This system also supports the processing of payments against grant awards through reimbursement requests. The initial phase of grants launched new applications for the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, and other programs, which enhances the user's experience for more than 500 educational entities. MDE's intranet site includes a grants management page that provides overview information for grant processes and links to the Department of Administration, Office of Grants Management, policies and tools. And MDE's centralized electronic grant file system supports internal grants and oversight activities. Next slide. Work that we've taken in our area of training, which is so important to managing grants. We're really focusing on training for persons responsible for managing our grants, including the roles and responsibilities, reporting and monitoring requirements, closeout procedures, and where to go for assistance. I'll share a little bit more for understanding. MDE is creating a toolkit to provide resources for grant managers, which will include grant forms and sample reporting templates, checklists for each grant program that will identify all pertinent information, such as the language that governs it, reporting requirements of the grantee and the agency, and any appropriate timeframes, the roles and responsibilities of the authorized rep, grantee, and grant specialist. Templates and procedures will provide managers with additional details on how to identify or resolve conflicts of interest or any other financial concerns. Closeout templates will be updated to match the OMG policies to ensure that MDE considers grantees' past performance prior to awarding subsequent grants. Next slide. And the work we've done around our policies and procedures. Our financial reviews and reconciliations. We are fully documenting our reviews, and we are ensuring that our legislatively named grants are administered similarly to other grants following the law. With our reporting requirements, we have updated our payment approval procedures to ensure that all reporting requirements are completed prior to making any payments. And our progress reports and monitoring, we are implementing one-to-one grantee visits when it's helpful and applicable, and we've improved documentation for monitoring reviews. Next slide. I want to also highlight the work that we are in progress. And again, I'm going to focus on the 3 areas that I just did from the work that we've completed. The areas are technology, enhanced training, and updated policies and procedures. Next slide. With technology, so the next phase of MEGS will provide a complete support of the grant management process by integrating data throughout our workflow phases. This will help ensure that MDE can meet all federal and state requirements, and our competitive, legislatively named, and single source grants will use this system in fiscal year 25. Next slide. As we continue our important work around training, we're really looking at our employee onboarding as well to ensure that our grant administrators have the training that they need to do the best job they can and really, really support the grantees. And with that, we're working on better tracking of these training requirements using our ELM system. Next slide. Policies and procedures at this time, MDE is consulting with MMB's Internal Control and Accountability Office to examine and improve its grant processes. We're actually in the middle of that project right now, and we're really excited to gather the feedback of what things are going really well and what feedback we have and input to continue to improve our processes. MDE is incorporating new guidance from the Department of Administration Office of Grants Management, and we're working on a continuous improvement project. This is an initiative to improve the end-of-year financial procedures. This was not in response to an audit or consultation. We internally decided to take on as an initiative to improve our processes. Additional resources. MDE is further strengthening their oversight and monitoring activities by providing additional resources for this work. During the 2023 session, the legislature provided additional funding for grant administration, expanding school finance audits, the Office of the Inspector General, including audit and internal control, and the legislature also provided additional resources to support the enterprise through funding for the Department of Administration Office of Grants Management. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Patrick Wolfram, our Inspector General.
Thank you, Patty Hand and Patrick Wolfram.
Thank you, Patty. Madam Chair, Representatives, my name is Patrick Wolfram, and I'm the Inspector General for the Minnesota Department of Education. I'm here to talk to you about our office. So the office was created in fiscal year 24 to reflect the state's commitment to prevent and objectively investigate claims of fraud, waste, and abuse. We investigate those concerns and work to make sure that in cases where fraud, waste, and abuse is determined to have occurred, that we work with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners and regulatory authorities to hold those who committed these acts accountable and to work to improve our internal processes to close gaps and mitigate future risk. So there's our statute up there. We're very proud to be the first legislatively created Office of Inspector General within the state of Minnesota, and we're committed to perform the duties of our office with respect, accountability, integrity, and to hold those that would violate the law and regulations accountable for their actions. So with regards to some structure there, you can kind of see in the diagram, there's the right side, which is the proactive part of our office, and the left side is more reactive. So on the right side, you have the Risk Management Accountability Division. They're proactive in developing evolving methods to detect and deter fraud, waste, and abuse, and to test our internal processes and controls, and to identify any gaps and make recommendations for improvement. The left side of the chart is our Investigations Division. That includes fraud investigations and student maltreatment work. They review complaints to substantiate or unsubstantiate violations and to collaborate with law enforcement and regulatory bodies to ensure that cases are properly resolved in accordance with the rules, laws, and regulations. In the center there, you kind of have our operations unit. We've begun to build that out. We have a legal unit. This includes our own chief legal counsel and an intake specialist and a legal aid. And at the end of all of our activities, investigations or risk management audits, we work closely with the Office of Chief Operating Officer, the General Counsel's Office, and the Commissioner to build proactive measures into our processes to mitigate future risk. So we've worked to ground our work by creating a mission and vision statement with MDE to align with the department's commitment to accountability, effectiveness, integrity in all of our programs and operations. We meet those objectives through independent and objective audits and investigations, inspections, and other activities. And in accordance with Statute 127.8.21, we've also developed a tip line and an email for members to the public to share the concerns around suspected fraud, waste, and abuse. Since our office was established in September of last year, we've reviewed several Department of Education policies and determined which of these policies would best align with the Office of Inspector General for ownership, refresh, and renewal. We developed a reporting policy and identified the staff requirements and the process for reporting concerns around fraud, waste, and abuse. And this is included in all our new employee training. We worked with our Office of Chief Operating Officer to refine our organizational risk management policy. This policy lays the framework for the formal risk management program by establishing the responsibilities for risk identification, analysis, and planning for future risk mitigation in the program to manage and have oversight over it. Establishes the internal controls and how internal controls coordinate with the department's policies and procedures to safeguard the assets, check accuracy and reliability of data, and to promote operational effectiveness to encourage adherence to sound management practices. Next slide. So with any mission, the key is communication. We've worked internally within our office and our colleagues within MDE and externally to identify external partners and stakeholders and to open these lines of communication and to create an understanding of the work that the Office of Inspector General does. This included identifying and removing some of the silos and barriers to communication to ensure that we can timely report and investigate possible concerns of fraud, waste, and abuse. We have implemented a recurring roundtable discussion where MDE employees can come to discuss matters of concern, and we've also engaged with the Department of Management Budget, Internal Controls and Accountability Office, the other state operational inspector generals of the Department of Human Services, Office of State Legislator, Minnesota Attorney General's Office, and of course, our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners. So there you'll see the model of risk management. Basically, the Office of Inspector General Division of Risk Management Accountability works with our partners across MDE to identify and mitigate risk. We conduct routine risk management activities at MDE to strengthen our processes and work with agency finance to better improve these processes, close the gaps, and provide better protection. By overall adding strength and accountability and oversight, the best prevention is the best protection is prevention. So risk management accountability takes these principles and practices and makes sure that they're integrated into part of our normal management strategy for all business processes within the Minnesota Department of Education and expands our program, team, and accountability. We're able to enhance the management and oversight of our grants. We work hand in hand with the Office of Chief Operating Officer, the General Counsel's Office, and the Commissioner, of course, to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse from ever occurring.
Thank you, Inspector General Wolfgram. While we have COO Patty Hand and Inspector General Wolfgram here, I wanted to slow down for a second and ask folks if they have any questions for these two before we move on. So I see Representative West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for coming down here and for that presentation. I know you got a big job ahead of you, and it's been 6 months since you've been set up. I'm curious, do you feel like you need any more tools, or do you have adequate tools to investigate fraud right now?
Inspector General Wolfgram.
Madam Chair, Representative, we're developing the tools in the toolkit we have. One of the issues we have with getting data and some of the language and the interpretation, the way the statute is written, can sometimes lead to barriers in us getting the information. The statute gives us access to program and grant data held by the department, but oftentimes, as with most financial crimes, it can evolve beyond the Department of Education, and sometimes the data could be housed within other state agencies or financial institutions. So that's probably the biggest barrier that we're having now as far as.
Representative West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as the language stands right now, I know when this all came about from the massive fraud case of Feeding Our Futures, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars out the door. So it's a fairly large problem, and we know that some of those actors also had grants and other programs and things like those. So are you saying that under the current statute, you can't get that information from other departments? It's only within MD? Am I understanding that correctly?
Inspector General of Graham.
Madam Chair, Representative, yes.
Thank you for your brevity. Representative Pryor.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I wanted to start with one quick comment, which is, I know we wrote the legislation last year, and here you're sitting here. So thanks, and I'm glad that you're at this first meeting. So it feels like magic, you know. It's we put it on paper, and here's the person. And I was even asked, you know, what qualities we would be looking for an Inspector General in this position, and you look like you fit the job. So, and I appreciate your presentation. And I know it's not magic, that there was execution, that there was a search, and that you're brought forward, and that you're doing the work now. And we do expect that continued conversation as we've started right now today. That will make a difference. So that was my comment. Thank you for being here. A couple questions. So I have two specific questions that I'm hearing from folks that I've been out talking to different school districts around the state. One particular in terms of the grants that's going to districts for that pipeline program. And one thing I've heard is that some of the smallest districts in the states really don't have that extra slack resources that you need to apply for grants. And then the answer has been, well, you can go into the consortiums, and then consortiums can help that. But it seems like maybe we're still missing schools that probably are the most at need. So maybe that's not, you know, maybe something you can comment now, or something that we can keep thinking about. And especially for getting new teachers into the jobs, we're thinking, and to maybe explore the possibilities of having some of our post-secondary institutions that are training teachers and doing that education, that they might be another place for grants. So I guess I would like to raise that as a conversation, as a thought right now, hear any comments that you might have. And then my other question is on specifically the full-service community school grants, because I heard from when I was out in Moorhead that it's like, we want to apply, we want to get started on that. When is that going to come, and is that where is that one particularly in the process right now? So that was two questions, and appreciate you being here. Appreciate this opportunity to follow up on the work that we've done. Thank you, Madam Chair, for putting this committee together.
Thank you.
This session.
Thank you, Representative Pryor. And whoever would like to answer that, it looks like a CEO hand.
Madam Chair, Representative, I can start. I think it's wonderful feedback, and I really appreciate you sharing it. And it is definitely something that is on our mind, and continuing to find different ways and to ensure that there's equity amongst grant opportunities for all of our school districts, whether they're in the Twin Cities area or whether they're outstate in rural Minnesota. So that is wonderful feedback to share, and I appreciate that. That's something we'll continue to work on. I promise we'll continue to work on that.
Mr. Uni.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Chair Pryor, on your specific question on the full-service community schools that was posted originally, we took a look at the grant opportunity, realized some items had to be revised, and so we've pulled it down to fix the guidance out there, the structure of the grant, and it should be revised and reposted quite soon. So I'll make sure to make the committee aware of when the reposting goes up, so that your contacts can be made aware. And of course, that will go out in our school leader mail, and I will also provide the direct link to the committee for our grants page, for competitive grants page. That's where we list all our competitive grants that go up, as well as access to our archived grants, so you can see which grants in this round and prior rounds have closed. That includes links to information around Q&As or FAQs that went out, as well as the timeline in which the grants were posted and when they closed. So I think that'll be a good resource for the committee.
Mr. Uni, can you please also state your name for the record, okay?
Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Adosh Uni. I'm Director of Government Relations for the Department of Education. You think I'd know how to do that?
Well, you know what? This interim has taught me that learning loss is real, not just amongst our students, but amongst our legislators, myself in particular. So, Representative Pryor, did you have any further comments? I have Representative Sensimura.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, staff, for being here. This is a little bit more on the grant management side, but I think similar to what Chair Pryor was talking about, being out in community, talking to different organizations and schools, have definitely also kind of heard about some of the potentially frustration or kind of confusion. And we passed big legislation last year. Kind of what is the rollout and timeline going to be for some of these programs, and particularly how does that align or not always align with the school year? So, one that I know a lot of folks in my community are excited about were the after-school grants, which I know are the RFP has, been posted for that, and I think is due, I think, in the next week or so. But people were waiting, and I think in trying to do their planning for the next school year, being able to make sure that those awards get out in time for people to be able to plan accurately is really important. And so I guess my question is more broadly with that specific example and other, funds like the full service community schools. How is your office balancing, I think, the real need to investigate fraud, right, which is incredibly important, while also not further limiting or putting barriers on the nonprofits in our community that are doing really good work and need to be supported? I agree with, I think it was our AG that said, like, Feeding Our Future was not a nonprofit, right? They were engaged in criminal activity. And so for years, we've had particularly marginalized communities of color coming to the state saying, we don't have support. We are doing really important work in communities, and we're not able to get the funds. There's lots of barriers. And so I just want to make sure that a few bad actors are now not going to create even more barriers for those communities. So I guess my overall question is, how are you kind of balancing the inspection, the due diligence with, also being responsive to meeting communities where they're at and making sure that we are able to fund the communities on the ground that are doing good work?
And who would like to take that on? CEO Han.
Madam Chair, Representative, that's a wonderful question, and thank you for asking it. The work that we continue to do and will continue to work very hard at is really working to ensure with our grant specialist team that we're getting out the grants as timely as we can and as quickly as we can. We're quite a jump in the number of grants this past legislative session, which is so wonderful. So thank you, so wonderful. But with that comes a little bit more pressure to get them out quickly and then to manage as well, and to make sure that we're looking at risk management as well. So really having the opportunity as we move forward, not only with the training that we do with our grant specialists and their work around that area, but we're also now collaborating with the Office of the Inspector General as well, and MMB. And so we've had the opportunities to do that, and we'll continue to work in that area.
Representative Sensimura?
Yeah, and I guess just kind of similar to Representative West's question, we asked you kind of what do you need to be able to investigate fraud? Like, what do you need to be able to be kind of responsive in your grant management to communities that are on the ground and that have often been left out of the process? Do you have all the tools you need, or is there something else that would be helpful?
Mr. Uni?
Madam Chair, Representative Sensimura, I'll respond kind of to I think one of the questions you had was around specific grants and how we're helping with reaching underrepresented groups that haven't necessarily participated in the process as much, or haven't had resources flow to communities as much, or been able to participate in the process. And then maybe I'll pass it off to CO Hand to answer kind of the general question around what more resources or what more processes we can put in place to enhance that process. For after-school community grants, I think is a really good example. One of the things that the legislature was really intent on doing when they passed grant opportunities for us last session is providing administrative resources to be able to have dedicated staff and administrative processes to enhance the effectiveness of the administration of the grants. And one of the things the after-school community learning grants is that we had to bring on a new staff person who would manage that program. So that person is dedicated to that area. So included in making the grants effective is making sure that we have the staff on hand, going through the hiring process, going through the training process, and making sure that they're trained up to be able to effectively manage the program. That includes managing the grant process in terms of being able to liaise with community members, to take questions, and to be able to provide adequate guidance documents for the application process, to be able to run the grant, competitive grant process, to be able to analyze the applications, be able to complete the rubrics, and then be able to make the final determinations of who's going to receive the grants. And so that's just an important component of the process that I don't want to gloss over, is that the program areas who oversee, who work in partnership with the grants team, also have to staff up to be able to administer these grants. But I think, I'm not sure if CO Hand has has any comments about just what maybe we need more, or processes that we can put in place in terms of enhancing our services to communities. I will just mention one thing is, we have had communications with groups that have aired frustrations around the pace. And we have heard from your colleagues in the legislature around some frustrations in the pace. That's all welcome input for us. We're a continuous improvement organization. We are in a new space with the amount of resources after a historic 2023 session, amount of resources that we're putting out to schools, districts, community organizations on behalf of our students, families, and organizations. So we're learning. We're staffing up to be able to meet that demand. And we're putting processes in place just in general, but we always do welcome that feedback, and we're trying to get better. But just for, I think the committee would benefit from that context around how we're building up to meet that demand that we were given from last session.
CEO Hand, did you want to add anything?
Madam Chair, Representative, I don't think I would add a lot more to what Adosha just said. I thought it was super appropriate. I think the most important thing, and what I'm most proud of the work with the grant specialist team I have the privilege to work with, is they're really, really working hard on making sure that everyone is trained well, not just the grant specialist, but also the program with the authorized representative. And then also we're really working on communication and communicating as often as we can, and really, really working with the grantee to make sure the grantee has everything they need and they understand, and kind of help them work through, because there's a lot of processes and procedures that happen around grants. So I feel like we're in a good place. I think we just need to continue to work in that area.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to go back to the line of questioning between Representative West and my Inspector General. He asked about whether there was something within the legislation that was stopping or not allowing you to really fully do the work that I think all of us want to see done and know that needs to be done, so that we don't have fraud cases like we've had over the last several years within the department. Is there, I know there's at least one other member of the Legislative Audit Commission on this committee, and I think there would be much interest from our bipartisan group to write language that allows you access into the other departments, and that is not handicapping yourself. And so I guess my question to the Inspector General is there something that we could do, in that fact, this session, that will allow you to better do your job? Thank you.
Inspector General.
Madam Chair, Representative, thank you for the question. I know currently that my office is engaged with the General Counsel's office at the Department of Education to review the language and see if there's enhancements that can be made that would allow us to subpoena data as required related to our investigations, and to compel our partners within state agencies to break down some of those silos, to provide the information as it applies to our investigations. Beyond that, I would have to defer to Mr. Uni.
Mr. Uni.
Madam Chair, committee members, I think that's always a great question about what more we can do as stewards of the taxpayer dollars, and as effective managers of programs around the state. Again, you think I know how to do this. So I think, in line with Inspector General Wolfgram, I think we would always welcome conversations around where can we provide enhancements in the authority that his office has to effectively investigate programs that may have issues going on with them, to audit programs, and to partner with our sister agencies.
Great, thank you. Representative Anderson, real quick.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. Are you able to have that discussion, bring that, those suggested languages to the legislature for this session? Because I think we don't want to handicap you at all, and it sounds like we are, or we didn't broaden it enough for you to have the ability to actually do what you need to do.
Mr. Rooney.
Madam Chair, Representative, I think one of the things, and I think Inspector General Wolfgram touched on this, is we're the first his office is the first statutorily established Inspector General, so it's kind of learning. He just came on board, I think, this summer, so as he kind of peels back the onions of what the responsibilities are, as we understand what the responsibilities are of the office, and the office gets a command over all of the issue areas, we're discovering where there could be enhancements and improvements. So I don't want to say that the legislature last year handicapped the office. I think we knew what we knew. But I will say that as the Inspector General with MDE investigates kind of what opportunities are there, I think we'd be more than happy to discuss with the legislature where the enhancements could happen. I don't want to put the cart before the horse in terms of like, can I commit to you here? Will we come this legislative session with the solutions? But I think I can commit to you that we're going to engage to get to that point. I just don't want to be here providing you a 100% guarantee that we're going to have something, but we're looking at it actively. And I think when we are able to find a solution, should one present itself, we'd be more than happy to come to the legislature in partnership, because I think the office, as Mr. Wolfgram has said, the office would need statutory authority to be able to engage in those activities that he had highlighted.
Great. I think we're going to move on and Representative Baker get the last question before we continue on with the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to follow up to a comment that Mr. Uni made about MDE staffing up. And I was actually going to wait and bring this up during the non-exclusionary discipline discussion, but I think it fits in. There is some significant frustration amongst our schools around the non-exclusionary discipline grants, specifically the timing of these grants. And I'm just going to, I got some feedback from a school district, and he talks about how the department exists to support the needs of schools and students, most importantly, and would accommodate districts so our students get the support they need without delaying red tape. So basically what has happened is this school district submitted a grant in October for a non-exclusionary discipline grant. They were awarded the grant in December, and they have been told to not hire those 2 staff positions. It's now February. So I just frankly have a problem when MDE is staffing up, and I understand the rationale that you have to implement stuff, but when our kids in our school districts are sitting there waiting to hire because of, and I'll use this school district's words, because of red tape. They're ready to hire. They want to hire. They have the plan in place. Let's get out of the way and allow them to hire. So it's just a comment, and it's a significant frustration, and I'll end with that.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if there was a question there, so we do have non-exclusionary discipline is the next item on the slideshow. So why don't we move on to that, and maybe some more discussion can be had on that particular topic. So thank you, CEO Hand and Inspector General Wolfgram. And next up, we have Assistant Commissioner Dr. Makari Traham. And I don't know if Assistant Commissioner Angela Mansfield's coming down yet, or with the next one. So we will just move on. Welcome to the committee, Doctor. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning. Madam Chair and committee members, my name is Dr. Makari Trainum. I am the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Equity and Engagement, and happy Black History Month to everyone. I'm new, so please bear with me. Okay. So I want to set the foundation for non-exclusionary discipline by lifting up that nationally there is broad agreement that zero-tolerance approaches or other punitive discipline policies are ineffective in creating a safe and equitable learning environment. These policies result in an array of outcomes for both students and schools. Schools with increased use of punitive discipline report decreased academic performance, attendance, and more negative school climate. Meanwhile, students who experience these practices experience consistent messaging that they are not welcomed or valued, are more likely to have poor relationships and diminished trust with school staff. Research also demonstrates that students who are suspended are more likely to experience academic challenges, grade level retention, drop out of school, and or experience arrest or incarceration. What's more, often the rationale for removing a student from the classroom is to support other students' learning. Yet suspensions have not been shown to improve outcomes for students who are not excluded. As we know, Minnesota demonstrates the worst discipline disparities in the nation. However, I am proud to say that as a state, last session we chose to prioritize addressing these disparities. Students, families, and educators alike push for this transformation on their own and through organized coalitions like Solutions Not Suspensions. Governor Tim Walz prioritized this work in the Due North Education Plan, as well as MDE in our strategic plan. We also saw a commitment from the Association of Metropolitan School Districts in their Reimagine Minnesota Education Plan to eliminate adult behaviors and policies that led to disproportionate outcomes. This collective effort has worked to solidify our shared commitment to not only reduce the number of students being suspended, but to close Minnesota's persistent racial discipline disparities. In 2017, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights initiated legal settlement agreements with 41 districts and charters to address discipline disparities impacting students of color and students with disabilities. During this time, districts had to develop improvement plans, and to support this effort, in 2019, MDE used federal grant funds to hire the first discipline policy specialist to support schools on this work. And I think it's important to note that these agreements that came out of MDHR is one of the largest lawsuits and settlements for civil rights in Minnesota history. Lost my number. Okay, got it. Next slide. Yeah, okay. To inform guidance and support for schools in shifting away from punitive practices, the discipline specialist started by developing a working group with representation of education leaders from 10 districts and over 20 community-based organizations and professional associations. Together, they hosted 58 community conversations to engage educators from across the state to learn about what resources and training the field needed. Additionally, MDE embedded participatory data collection methods into training, securing input from an additional 150 educators. This early work and engagement helped MDE to identify future legislative and programmatic priorities that have since made significant progress on. And this next slide, demonstrates the evolution of this early engagement, which is captured in our 2023 legislative accomplishments. And you'll see that we were able to define what non-exclusionary discipline is, including strategies. We have the prohibition of kindergarten, of exclusion, or suspension, I should say, from kindergarten through third grade. In addition, this is applying to preschools and school readiness programs. We have a parent complaint process that came through that legislative session, as well as pupil withdrawal agreements and remission plans as well. All right. We are looking, our approach here in Minnesota is that we are looking to create the conditions for a strong sense of inclusion and belonging, and ensuring that authentic cross-cultural communities exist so that harm is eliminated and each person's humanity is acknowledged and valued. We recognize that in the work we do, especially around non-exclusionary discipline, it requires reflection and introspection about how we see people and whether we truly see, acknowledge, and value one's humanity. Asking ourselves and always considering, do we allow people to show up as their full selves, even if it is different from who I am and the way that I do things? Cross-cultural communities means that I have to acknowledge and that we have to show up differently. Cross-cultural communities means that I have to acknowledge that we show up differently culturally, socially, and in many other ways. We have to be open to make room for difference to exist in ways that grows us to be better collectively and allows us to find ourselves in community with each other, even though the way that I do things or other people do things is different. So let's talk a little bit about the research. A large and growing body of research outlines the negative impacts of exclusionary discipline, as well as the positive impact of non-exclusionary discipline. The research, particularly in recent years, indicates that both non-exclusionary and exclusionary discipline has significant impact that extends beyond the individual child to their peers, family members, the school community, and the community at large. With this in mind, it's important to note that to make significant and lasting changes to ultimately shift culture requires that non-exclusionary strategies and practices are coupled with adults recognizing and addressing how their own lived experiences, ways of being, culture, bias, and so forth impact and influence how they see behavior and enact policies, practices, and strategies. In other words, the through line requires non-exclusionary practices and strategies, a critical consciousness of self and myself in relation to others, and clear efforts to improve relationships between adults and students. This slide is showing the definition that we came up with and that was put into the statute. And you can read that. I don't think I need to read that to you, but we're excited that we have a definition that exists within statute. What we've done that we're really proud of out of the office is we created an introductory in what we call NED or non-exclusionary discipline 101 training for staff across the state. And it's not just limited to educators. It's open to community members. It's open to anyone that's interested in learning about and wanting to know more about non-exclusionary discipline. We call this an introductory level. And we are proud to say that since July of 2023, we have reached over 2,000 participants. Those participants are inclusive of educators, principals, superintendents. We have community organizations that have shown up. But we've touched more than 2,000 people since July of 23. In addition, we have created specific content tailored to districts that reach out to us and ask for support and help. Also to our grantees that we have. We've had principal-specific sessions. We've presented at the Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals and just recently presented at the Elementary School Principal Conference. We've also held a superintendent-specific session that we presented in August at the Back to School Conference. Additionally, we've worked with MDE's dispute resolution team to reintroduce the legal framework of school discipline, including the updated language around the Pupil Fair Dismissal Act. That's a 3-hour session that we've been hosting. It emphasizes the importance of non-exclusionary discipline and the use of positive behavioral interventions. We've had 4 statewide sessions that we've held since April, and we will continue to be holding sessions throughout the year. Our continued support is that we will continue to be offering 101 both virtually and in person, and we've also are creating and will be hosting soon our NEDS 102, our Non-Exclusionary Discipline 102 training. This training is giving an opportunity to pause for reflection and inquiry around the concept that, like many education policies and practices, students' rights and responsibility often systematically benefit some while excluding others. And so this is particularly true as we look at the disciplines specifically here in Minnesota around our Black, our Indigenous, our students with disability, that we often see huge disparities among that. And this 102 is meant to dive deeper into that and have people do reflection for that. This also includes the idea of equity considerations, which is asking the question, to what extent are rights and responsibilities student-centered, meaning that we're trying to get to the root of the issue, we're trying to look at the student as a whole person, and how do we address that? We've been taking time to talk with various folks, educators, meaning teachers in the classroom, principals, superintendents, around their experiences with NED, and we've made this short 1-minute video to share some of the thoughts that's coming from the field. We thought that we were going to share this video that was going to show you some things in the field. This is going to be on YouTube, and we will make sure that we get that link to you to watch. I think you'll be very excited to hear the voices that we've made in this 1-minute video. We have a lot more, but we cut it because we knew our time was short here. All right. And so as we're looking at our non-exclusionary discipline grants, in particular, the purpose of these grants is that we're developing and training staff on policies and practices that help them to maintain the respect, trust, and attention of students. The grantees that were selected are going through the following evidence-based list in the work that we're doing with them, and you can see that list up in front of you. That includes, excuse me, restorative practices. It includes social emotional learning. It includes trauma-informed schools and trauma-sensitive schools, as well as a discipline policy around code of conduct. In our first round of grants that we did, we targeted training to school staff and personnel. We do this multiple times a year, along with coaching and mentoring from MDE staff, as well as resources that we create and curate for our grantees. Grantees are required to have an evaluation plan that will summarize their activities and provide impact data. Oh, I read the wrong one. Okay, but let me go back one, sorry. And so these grantees, I read the wrong slide, so my apologies. These particular grantees we had 20 grantees that were awarded the NED grants under the ESSER funding, and their funding will end as of September of this year. And then, as I said, with what that's covering, these are the things that's being covered: training, technical assistance, and then they will have an evaluation process. Okay. And so as we're looking to continue to grow our work, we are incorporating our learnings from the first round as we moved into improve our second round of grant programming that closed, and we have already identified who the grantees will be and the money that came through the legislature this past session. We had 69 applicants. It was a highly competitive grant where we had folks asking for more than $11 million in money, but we awarded a total of 18 at $3 million, a little over $3 million in funding, because that's all we had. Just to be clear, that's all we had. So that's why we awarded less than the $11 million that was asked for. The expectation in this second round of grants is that it's going to increase the knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs of non-exclusionary discipline topics such as anti-bias, trauma-informed care, restorative practice, social-emotional learning, comprehensive school mental health, and positive behavioral interventions, as well as overall supports. We're looking for them to successfully implement evidence-based exclusionary discipline practices throughout the school, and we want them to be reviewing and revising their discipline policies and procedures. We do anticipate seeing lower rates of suspension and expulsions for all students, increased sense of belonging, improved school climate, and improved student outcomes. And with that, these are various resources that are available that you can find on our website to learn more about, and I will pause.
Thank you, Dr. Trainer, and welcome to House Education. Usually our building does not rumble like this, so thank you for just like working through it. Yes. That's awesome. But once again, learning, we all realize, like when we try to learn, we can get distracted just like our kids can.
Absolutely.
So we'll do some brief questions. We got about 10 10, 15 minutes before we want to pause. I know Dr. Trainer is going to be back here tomorrow as well for the mental health stuff. But I know Representative Bigberg, you did have a question. And I'll remind folks too of this. Your question made me think about, Representative Bigberg made me think about this. We serve too as ombudsmen for school districts, and if there is an issue, make sure you reach out to MDE directly too. I've had to do that with grant processes for my districts before as well. So I know they're welcome and open to, mine wasn't with MDE, it was with another agency, and they're usually welcome to hearing the problems that they can help you iron out. But Representative Baker.
Yeah, I want to first begin by saying thank you. This is really, really important work around student discipline and non-exclusionary discipline. There is not an educator that I have talked to that doesn't agree that there are significant issues with school discipline and suspension. So thank you for the work that you're doing in that area. I just have two comments, and I'll try to be brief. The first one is more of a feedback piece, and you talked about a list, if you go back a couple slides, of non-exclusionary discipline trainings. And I just went through, and I just from my own professional background, either as a teacher or as a principal, those are all phenomenal. All of those things there, schools are doing across the board.
Is this
yeah,
one?
all that's it. Yeah.
Oh.
So, and I think the piece that schools are now asking for, we totally understand those pieces, but it's the meat and potatoes. So a teacher is teaching a class, and Chair Joachim, you experienced this as a substitute. You're trying to teach content and manage behavior at the same time, and it's very difficult. So the training that I've experienced from the department thus far around those areas are very theory-based. And what educators are looking for is tangible examples of what do I do, how do I handle behavior in my class in a non-exclusionary discipline manner. When a student hits another student, I have to deal with that situation while managing the other 20 kids in the classroom. I also have to communicate with families. That's what educators are asking for. Give me tangible examples. So that's the first comment. And then the second one, I want to go back. And Mr. Uni, you and I had a conversation around this one. I want to go back to this principal-specific sessions presented at the MASSP Summer Conference. So I had the opportunity to speak at that conference on the last day of the session. And as I was driving up, I got phone calls and text messages, frankly, from very angry administrators, very angry principals who had just finished their school year. And I took notes on what they were saying, and the specific frustration was about the tone of the training and the nature of the training. So they described it as condescending from the MDE staff that was presenting. They described it as, we know better. Now, I don't believe that was said, but it was the feeling that the administrators had. And it was, you don't know what you're doing. There was anger, there was frustration, and from what I understand, about half of the administrators got up and walked out of that training. So Mr. Uni and I talked about it, because when I got to Breezy Point, I called him and said, we got a problem. And I think the frustration is that went into the fall. And the same people that did that training were doing the training, and we're not able to answer simple questions from administrators about process, going into the nuts and bolts pieces. And then going into this February, and the example I shared before, this principal just wants to get their staff hired to work with kids. So there's frustration around this topic because principals just want kind of meat and potatoes, examples that they can use. All of that is good, but we just want concrete examples. And then we want to be trusted as professionals as well and not be talked down to by the people doing the training. So with that, I'll leave it.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Baker. I've just been noted that the next presenter may not be able to be here for questions tomorrow, so we really do need to move on, but I appreciate your comments. I think you should definitely continue that conversation offline. Dr. Trainer will be here tomorrow, but our next presenter may not.
Okay.
So we're going to move on
Thank
to
you.
Angela Mansfield, the Assistant Commissioner, and Darren Cordy, an Assistant Commissioner. We're going to talk about special ed licensure programming. I'm just trying to figure out how fast we can all walk over to the Capitol. So we have about 10 minutes, I think. Go ahead, introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
I think I can still say good morning, Chair and committee members. I am Angela Mansfield, Assistant Commissioner, and I'm going to jump right into the slides so we can get this moving. I'm here this morning to talk about give an update on our special education teacher pipeline grant. You'll see behind me some information about the eligible participants and funding usages for this pipeline grant. The goal is clearly laid out in the law that you set forth for us. We are very appreciative for us. It's easy to get that train moving when it's like that. The grant funds reduce, if not eliminate, the financial burden of special education, acquiring a special education teaching license for a person going into the opportunity. Minnesota districts, charter schools, and cooperatives are eligible to apply for grant funds, and they must prioritize Tier 1 and Tier 2 teachers. I was attentive to that need that was being mentioned about Greater Minnesota and smaller school districts or charters, and that is something that we have heard. In this situation, and you can go to the next slide, you'll notice on the third bullet that we were we were suggesting, recommending that folks work with their service cooperatives for those applications. It might not be the optimal way to go about it, but when you're pooling the resources in that way, oftentimes it works for everyone. And so we're also still trying to figure out how to best make that work for everyone. You'll see the connection there also. Do you want to say anything about for Tier 1 or Tier 2?
Sure.
Mr. Cordy, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Darren Cordy. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Student Support at MDE, which includes our Special Education Division. I will echo what Assistant Commissioner Mansfield stated about being appreciative of this funding. As you all are aware from last session, we are currently operating under a corrective action plan with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs regarding our Tier 1 special education licensure and teachers who are teaching in special education classrooms. Under that type of licensure, this funding is going to assist those teachers to be able to get up to the appropriate licensure that they need to be able to stay into the classroom. And as you all hear, as well as we do, the workforce shortage is real, and we need to keep these teachers in the classroom. It's particularly acute for some of our smaller districts and our charter schools as well, too, which don't have a robust special education workforce. They may only have a few staff on hand, so for them to lose them would be significant. So this funding is going to prioritize that need.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Another priority that we had was balancing the awards that we granted between the Greater Twin Cities area and Greater Minnesota. To this extent, there were significant or sufficient applications coming from both areas. So our grantees made it easy on us, which is also very nice. Next slide. The requirements. So grantees must partner with at least one of the following. You see PELSB right there, and then the Council for Accreditation. Since the grantees are situated in pre-K-12 school systems, this is where that partnership came into play, and that is described by the law. Also, since the most significant barrier that educators face is the expense of the teacher prep, the grant requires that a significant amount of funding, which is about 80 or at least 80%, be spent direct to the teacher candidate for scholarships or stipends. With this special revenue fund, we have some bullet points here on why the grant was established that way, allowing those dollars to stay with the program over a longer period of time. Grantees will receive that grant funding for a longer term, allowing them to actually reap the benefits of trying to get that licensure finished. They also may apply again for a new award during that 5-year term, and if they've overestimated their ability, they can reduce their award, and those funds may be granted out to other grantees. For our results for this first term, we've had 22 applicants that we received. We were able to fund all of those, total of 149 districts. Greater Minnesota, that was 15. You'll see that amount there, 12.74 million. Twin Cities area was 7 with 7.2 million. And then at least one of those program was looking to also fund a registered teacher apprenticeship program, which is something else we're really excited to partner with DLI and Pearls Beyond. The old data from last year's poll, which you might be interested in, which is connected with the OSEP memo that AC Corti was talking about, was we knew we had first year SPED teachers in tier 1, 219. Second year we were at about 67. So this is something that we feel that is really benefiting that intended purpose of getting at those teachers who need to move into that other tier that before they kind of age out of the system there. We are also in the process of finalizing the fiscal year 24 awards, but cannot reveal those grantee names until all grantees are awarded. This is the data that we have to share at this time. The next competition we're going to be posting really soon, and that will be for a July 1 start date. There's 0 funded in the base for fiscal year 26, so I would look to your constituents because I think this is something that is going to gain traction in our portfolio of Grow Your Own funds. Definitely is something that people are looking for. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner Mansfield. I hate to cut you short because we do have to get to the floor session. Does anybody have a burning question that they can't wait to ask for this segment?
I think you spoke to it.
Representative Santamura.
Maybe you can just send it out. Like, how does the number of candidates who are enrolled in the program compare to the overall need of teachers who are on that tier 1 licensure that are going to be soon out of compliance?
We can
Assistant
send that.
Commissioner Mansfield.
Oops, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative. We can send that out so that we can preserve time.
Thank you, Representative Santamura. That's a good question. With that, members, we are adjourned. Don't forget to move your packets into the safe folder. We'll be in the same place tomorrow. And with that, we're adjourned.